what today's webinar is going to be about, and today's key points of computer technology E&O. We want to help you understand the specifics to what is technology E&O. We definitely want you to understand who is considered a technology company, and we're going to identify some technology products and services, and then we want what coverages are required, and this can be due to just their risk exposure or contractual obligations. And we're going to have Harry talk about how to get the conversation started and how to establish your agency as a resource, which I think is very important. And Harry was an agent previously, so he's going to be able to give us some great ideas and using his past experience as an agent. So let's talk about what is computer tech E&O. Again, this is kind of a basic concept. Professional liability covers insureds against claims for their technology, service, or product rendered to their client. What I've included here is particular wording from the safety tech form that, again, we've written through Chubb. Our form is written on a duty to defend, and that's a perk when you're looking at some forms, because the duty to defend will include even if the claim or suit brought against the client insured is groundless, false, or fraudulent. The Chubb form will pick these up even if they are found groundless, false, or fraudulent, which is definitely a bonus in policy forms. So this particular slide, I had pulled some of our verbiage out from our policy form, and I'm not going to read every single one of these, but I just wanted to give you an idea. This, I think, is kind of what we all think about when we think about technology services. And again, our form covers this, but is not limited to these services that are on the slide. A lot of people consider themselves just project management, consultants. This includes any network design, programming, security, databases in there. Kind of what a lot of our agents are questioning these days with the data breach is just basically data breach itself. Does our form pick up the a breach with the data that the insured was hired to secure? And that's kind of a key point when we want to talk about data. Was the insured hired to secure the client's data? If that is the case, that is actually picked up in our main computer tech E&O form for the database collecting, compiling, processing of data. And then as you can see towards the bottom, I've kind of listed security, which would be computer security, and that would include data as well. Keep in mind, trending technology is always increasing. As covered in our previous webinars, new age technology with drones, virtual reality. You know, there's mobile apps out there now that can control your temperatures and even lock your doors at your home or business while you're away. This is fantastic, innovative technology that is ever rising. It's fun. I think a lot of us use it on a daily basis and you don't even realize. I can't tell you how many times I pick up my phone and use my mobile apps to, you know, search where I'm going, reviews of stores, and it's just kind of fun, all the technology exposure that we have these days.
So, yeah, me too. I mean, everybody too, I'm sure. I've been living in this town or around here for for 49 years. And the other day I found myself using Siri to get someplace 10 miles away. You know, it was crazy. So, you know, just to say a little bit more about the, but not limited to, on these technology products and services. I mean, it is a huge industry. I looked it up the other day. There are 17 million workers, or 12% of the total employment workforce, working in the technology industry in some way. I mean, it accounts for 23% of the output of the U.S. which is unbelievable to me. I mean, it's such a huge industry. Maggie mentioned drones for, you know, inspections, rescue efforts, package deliveries. You know, I've never seen a drone used for a package delivery, but supposedly they are using them and they're testing them. Self-driving cars, and that throws in the whole auto industry. It's crazy, and to me it's crazy that you can put out a software update for your car like Tesla did, and it makes it a self-driving car. It's freaky. Virtual reality and augmented reality, Internet of Things is a big one, and they say there's going to be 24 billion devices, and what Maggie mentioned, the lock, you know, locking your door, you have a doorbell that dings and has a camera, you know, the Nest thermostat, all that fun stuff. It's really, to me, it's extremely interesting, and it allows me to kind of live through those guys and to get my fix of technology. Artificial intelligence and data sharing, and you know, just all kinds of fun things. You can grab personal or professional information for your agency management systems using companies like Zapier, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm sure you know you guys all think of a fun example, and I challenge you to submit it to us, and challenge you to decline a risk. I don't think we're going to decline a risk for you. So hopefully we can show you that we can write all those crazy exposures that we're talking about.
You bet, Dwight. That's great. We're going to have Harry talk about some technology products. Let's have him jump in.
All right, thanks, Dwight and Maggie. You know, what you guys just talked about, the technology services part of what we do, you know, the fact that it is growing exponentially, and it's a very exciting time. The same thing you will find occurring on the product side of the ledger. The drones that they discussed are made up of thousands of components, integrated circuits, computer chips, and things like that. So I'm going to assume that you guys have a fair amount of experience with what technology products are, but these 4 points over the last couple of years have done a pretty good job of encompassing most of the new entries into the technology product world. You can usually find technology product related items somewhere in this list, because most of what they're doing is going to be found with in these very general descriptions. So please refer to it as you entertain your tech prospects. When they mention what they're doing, you can generally find it here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to one of the key issues in tech coverages, some of the things that set it apart. This one in particular is personal injury. It's different here than it is in the GL world. This personal injury means other than bodily injury, and it's typically problems that arise from security breaches or information breaches. Your information ends up with the wrong person. The individual that has this happen to them could be subject to a lot of different things. But some of the most annoying, concerning, and long-lasting effects can be public embarrassment and things that become public knowledge that shouldn't be public knowledge. So I bring this out, and I want to make sure to point it out because it is available in our form, in the JUMP form, but it is not available in all forms of tech coverage. And it's something that you should really be looking out for going forward, because it's one of those things that seems not to be discussed on the front end of these coverages. These things come in after the fact. They come in after these coverages have been in place, and then you're wondering if it's there or not. This is a great opportunity to note the term and make sure you're looking for it, and actually ask them when you're speaking with your prospects about how they feel about having this type of coverage. In some cases, they may not have thought about it at all. In others, they may have thought about it and would greatly appreciate you bringing it up.
And I think it's worth mentioning that the GL policy excludes the coverage for people that provide that as a professional service. So it's a great tie-in to the professional liability form.
That's a great point.
Or I'm sorry, it's a great tie-in to the general liability form. Right.
Great point there. One of the other things to consider, one of the things that has changed over the years with these forms is who's covered. You want to pay particular attention, and you want to also bring the point up with your potential insurers. Who would you like to see covered here? In our forms, we're able to cover directors, officers, employees, subcontractors, parent companies, and subsidiaries. That is, again, something that comes up, not at the beginning of these things. In most cases, it comes up, as a matter of course, 3 months in, when someone wants to add an additional insurer, that you want to be sure that that's a possibility, especially if you're dealing with a client that works regularly with subcontractors, and those relationships may be short-term. You want to be able to bring those guys in and have them covered. One other thing on this point, and I mentioned talking about these things in the beginning and looking for them in the beginning. It's kind of one of the habits that I've gotten into in the agency world, was having these discussions and asking these questions before they came up, and it kind of helped me develop relationships with the folks that I was working with. They greatly appreciated it. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but for the most part, I do realize when you're talking with these guys, they've got the basics. They know what their liability limits need to be and where they'd like to see their deductibles. But this type of thing, the onus is really upon the good agents to bring them up before they become issues. Okay, I'm going to keep going.
Thanks, Harry. Now that we've kind of covered the technology services and the products, I kind of want to point out who you're to consider as a technology company. Just because a client has a website doesn't mean they actually offer a technology product service to others. So a couple of things you want to look at, the company, your prospects that you're discussing. Do they sell a technology product to their clients? Are they providing a technology service to their clients? And do they deploy technology for others, which would be a website designer designing a website for their clients? That would be doing work for others that are related to technology. And then, of course, if they teach technology. A good question to help determine if they're considered a tech company is, what do clients pay the insured to do? Are they paid to develop that website? Are they paid to teach their clients about the technology services, whether it be how a computer software program's used, what you can do with it, and things like that. Dwight, would you like to talk about the growth in the technology industry? Kind of cover a couple of those things. We've touched on a little bit with drones and all the exciting things, but I think we really need to point out how quickly growing the industry is. It's just booming.
Yeah, some software companies and a lot of people in the technology industry, if you're building a custom app for a business, that business a lot of the times is not only providing a technology service, but it's also providing like a management consulting service. So, in the sell a product, provide a service, deploy technologies for other, or teach technology, those are things in the technology industry that they're doing, but there's also things that really, it's not evident right off the bat when you're talking to these guys that the software company is actually directing where you should go. It's more of a management consulting.
Right.
And I think we'll probably cover that later, but we have a safety tech endorsement that includes management consulting liability, professional liability as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's
Right, just FYI, we do have that on the schedule. That is one of the webinars that we'll be doing.
Actually, I believe it's upcoming next.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the third in the series?
Yes, you're giving away our secrets.
Sorry. But I think that'll be great. And it really, we talked about drones and, Internet of Things and some of the things that are really spurring growth. But technology is such an underlying integral part of our society and everything that, you can't help but for that industry to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So
you should grow with it. Make sure you get out there in front of the curve.
Yeah.
And work with your clients. Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. I'm going to talk a little bit about establishing your agencies as resources with these clients. Typically, the clients that come to your agencies are going to be concerned with getting coverage that they will assume fits them. They've been told by a potential customer or vendor that they need to carry a certain type of coverage. So they're generally going to be concerned about liability limits, deductibles, and some of the general coverages that are in place. And that's great. It's our job to take those in, but it's after that takes place that we really start to have an opportunity to develop our ability to be considered as a resource when we're working with these folks. We do understand that they do come and they're looking for coverage for contractual obligations in most cases, and that's what the liability limits and things like that will take care of. But it's things just beyond that contractual obligation that are really going to set us apart and really determine if you're going to be their go-to guy for these coverages and other coverages. Did you look beyond the contractual obligations and ask them about how they are affected by, their coverages if something goes wrong and there's a suit, and if your contractual obligations really don't point that out very well. The third point here, to demonstrate understanding of services and risks. One of the first things that I noticed when I started to work with a lot of tech clients is that I couldn't speak their language. And I think this will be a challenge for most of us. In the insurance world, we work with healthcare, we work with a lot of different businesses, but I think healthcare might be the only other industry that has this type of jargon that includes in it so much information that we need that will help us understand much more clearly what they're doing if we can understand what it is they're telling us. They'll throw out acronyms like SaaS and ISP and EAI, just like we know exactly what they're talking about. I would recommend, and what we'll probably do when we reach out to you, I have a website that I've been using that helps me understand exactly what these acronyms are. So basically, it's a pretty basic point, but we need to be able to speak their language. We need to be able to understand their language when they're telling us what it is they're doing. If we can do that, then we have a better chance of understanding, what their needs are and what they aren't. Okay, a little bit about, once we're able to do that, speak their language, understand what they're telling us, we need to talk to them about, what coverages are required. In most cases, we're going to determine that by what the insurer's needs are. So when we understand what they're doing and who they're doing it for and how they're doing these things, we can start to subscribe coverages for what their immediate needs are. But more importantly, we can also do it for what they aren't. The other thing that we're going to be looking at when we're talking about what coverages are required are the contractual requirements. And, you know, we're familiar with these. I'm not going to go through the whole list with you. If you guys have been doing this for a while, you know what contractual requirements are there in the general liability world. You've got the same thing in the cyber world. So you want to pay particular attention to these when they come up, and you want to move forward with these in mind and make sure you have all those points covered. Regarding how to get the conversation started. Now, I put this last because a lot of times we'll get on and they just start in right away. I need this, and you know, I need these coverages, and this is what I'm interested in particularly. And it can be a one-way conversation. It's important to make it a two-way conversation, and you know, for the most part, you can do this with some pretty general questions. You know, what do you do for your clients? To a tech person, and I do realize this can open up conversations that can be pretty lofty and hard for us to understand. But if we're paying particular attention to it, we understand from this conversation what the product is, so we know what they do. Then we need to understand how do you perform this service for your client. I think this is where, you know, great agents set themselves apart. The information that they take from how you perform this service is key to determining what coverages you're going to recommend. It's also key for determining what coverages are not going to be included. But the most important thing with that information is that you have a very frank discussion about what those coverages are and why they're in place, and what coverages are not in place. They have tech expertise. They're coming to us for coverage expertise, and quite often the guy that can, you know, ask them the pertinent question about their service, the one that tells that client that you heard me, you understand exactly what I'm doing, I have complete confidence that the coverages that you're recommending are the ones that I need, okay? And then beyond those, you've got the types of claims that can come about. Sometimes we have discussions with prospects without actually talking about what's keeping them up at night. And a lot of times these are the reasons, these are the things that brought them to the market in the first place, and you have the opportunity to have this conversation with them, understand what is keeping them up at night, and you know, it gives you the opportunity to be the one that has had this frank discussion, that asks the follow-up questions regarding the claims. Because let's face it, you know, after we've talked about liability limits and deductibles and what the coverages are, you know, this is one of those things that comes up and we have to discuss, hopefully, for a second time. So if we've discussed it at the front end, we've earned our kudos, and that way that client has peace of mind when a claim does arise. They will know how it's going to be handled, and I can't tell you how much peace of mind that gives a customer, and how much, you know, how much more likely it's going to be that they're going to pick up the phone or go to the email and contact you again when they're ready to renew or look at other coverages.
Great.
Great point. So outside of just the standard revenue, payroll, property value questions, you're saying kind of just ask them what keeps them up at night. What's their concern, right?
What's the concern?
You know, what I've also seen is it's almost a sign of respect sometimes when you're talking to a technology guy and you ask them, you know, what they do, and they tell you something and you don't know what they do, and you ask just, what is that?
Exactly.
You know, and so, I mean, that, some of these guys are doing something that's so new that, you know, even the other, you know, people that are close to them in the technology industry, they don't know. You know, it's cutting edge. It's technology.
Absolutely.
Moore's law and all
Absolutely.
that, right?
And you have to know at the back of their minds, if you've got an individual like that, he tells you what he does, and he knows that 99% of the population doesn't understand it. He uses English when he explains it, they still don't get it.
Right.
You don't ask the question, he's probably going to think right away, you know, how's this going to come about? You don't understand what I do. So you're absolutely right there.
Exactly. So these are our contacts, but before we kind of close up, I just want to, you know, I'll let you close up or whatever. I want to let everybody know that in 2016, you know, I mentioned that we implemented that 151 promise, and you know, that's where we upped our service standards on most accounts, most quotes, most service issues, to an in by one, out by five. In by five, out by one. So we're going to give an incentive today to everybody that is logged on and watching the webinar for a $25 gift card. Harry just came in to the office and he got another one this morning to send out. But we'll send you a $25 gift card for submissions of qualifying accounts that generate under $20,000 in premium, and a $50 gift card for submissions over $20,000. And then it also kind of shows you that with our authority levels, we can quote and bind very large accounts. So kind of wanted to throw that incentive out there before we end it.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm sure our agents and participants would appreciate that. So in closing, we've completed our webinar. Let's see if we have any questions out there.
So here's one. I assume that the personal injury coverage also covers social media slander for a business, and that is true, no matter whether it's online or off.
Yes, yep. That's what the personal injury is there for, and that's why it's very important to make sure any policy form that you're offering, you do have some type of coverage for that, because we all know social media is huge these days, and advertising for companies, and most definitely.
Okay, so is there a way we can get a copy of the form? And so one additional thing, and maybe we're 7 minutes, 8 minutes too long here, but we'll close it up and answer this question. We are going to provide the slides, a recording of the presentation, the safety tech brochure, and the applications alongside the question and answers for everybody. So,
is it okay if we also throw in there the website that I've been using for the tech acronyms?
Absolutely, yeah, great idea. All right. Well, again, thank you, Maggie and Harry, for presenting today and making yourselves available before and after the webinar. It's awesome. I can't wait to get these guys on the horn again and show them the next the sneak peeks that I helped below.
Yeah,
coming up soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, thanks for joining the Safety Tech Professional Liability Key Points in Tech E&O webinar.